Hi folks, Mike from M&M Kayaks up in Pine Top, Arizona. We're going to do a quick video on how to upgrade this boat and get it ready for a pedal drive system. So step number one is going to be removing some products like the sonar pod. We'll remove the button back here that holds it in place, the front clamp here that holds that down, the foot pegs. We'll take the seat out just so we can do the back seat adjustments and put the seat track on. And we're going to take out the left-hand rod holder so that we can fish new cabling tubes through here. All right, so we've taken out the rod holder, 3 screws. I just put them down inside here. We've removed the seat brackets. This is the old seat bracket that went on to hold your seat bar down. We're not going to need these, but we do need the screws and the little plastic washers. We took off the sonar pod hold down clamp and the button back here. We took out the foot pegs and the straps that hold the seat down. So I like to start with putting the rudder together first and getting the 8-ball steering together. The bits that I use are small enough, the pilot bit is small enough to go inside the actual bushing that's going to go in the wall of your kayak here. And that's what's going to hold the tubing on. The reason I do this is because when I drill this pilot hole, I know exactly how this will end up when I'm done with it, and I can also orientate the drill to where I'm drilling a flat, square hole into the kayak. This eliminates any guesswork as far as how high up and down the bit needs to be. This is a 9/32 bit that we're going to open these holes up to, and that'll be the correct size for the nipple. We're going to do the exact same thing right back here. So we need a new cable, left and right. All right, so now that we have those holes drilled, we can actually start fishing some wire. So this is 8-gauge copper wire. You can buy it at Ace or Home Depot or anything else. The reason that we're going to use 8-gauge is because I can slip this tubing right over the wire and it gets a nice fit that I can pull this back through with. But the first thing we have to do is get from this side over here all the way over into this hole. The only way to do that is by keeping this bent shape in there. We're going to fish it through here. We have to go down underneath the hole, and remember it's a tri-hole design, so there's ridges underneath there. And you have to get past this scupper plug, which is solid all the way through. So the easiest thing to do is when you start fishing this through, fish it through on an angle like that and get it up into this side channel here. And after that, it'll eventually end up in this hole. Okay, so we've got the 8-gauge wire fished all the way through, went through very easily. And now we're going to run one of these cords through. This is the new cable conduit for the rudder control. The reason that new lines have to be installed is because the old cabling came out here on the left and right side. And that was for the toe clips that are no longer in the kayak. And they would be in the way of the pedal drive system anyway. So once you get all the knots out, now since this is going over to that side, we're going to use this inside hole here. We're going to run this through there. Pull this cable all the way through. So now that we've got the 8-gauge wire, we've got the cable conduit started in there, we're going to slip this down over the end. When you think you've got enough on there, just go ahead and put some more on. and then gently pull this back out, feeding this tubing through as you pull so that nothing gets caught up, and hopefully it won't come loose while you're pulling it through. Okay, just like so. And we're going to do the exact same thing. I have two wires, one slightly straighter than the other, but I use the straighter one for this side here. All right, so now we're ready for the second tubing to be run through here. So now that we've got our new tubing run, the first thing that we're going to do is push these in, and I just use a poly hammer to do it. Get them nice and fleshed out, and we'll come back later and super glue these for water sealing. When it comes to running the cables, you want to pull this tight, clamp it with a pair of small vice grips. This is the length of the nipple that we're going to use. It's going to go inside the boat, so we really just need to cut off just enough line here, or leave just enough line for this to fit inside there. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to install this nipple. I use a barbecue lighter. We're going to heat this tubing up. All right, so once you've got the nipple in, you can release the pliers, take your poly hammer, and we're just going to tap it. So we're going to do the exact same thing on this side here. So as you can see, we now have the two new cords, conduits installed for the cabling. So we can install our 8-ball steering control. It goes in this detent right here. So the way I like to do this is I drill the two outside holes first. And get them mounted. And then I come back and I drill the two top holes and I push this down into place, so that my holes will be lined up with where the steering control will sit when it's fastened. Okay, so your kit will come with two of these short pieces of conduit. These are designed to go inside these tubes here and stretch all the way down to there, and that will protect the rudder cables while they're exposed on the top surface of the boat. So after we've got our lines through, both of them went through pretty easy. We can come back up here, and this is going to be our hold down for the two cable connect protectors here. And we're going to use our small bit, 1/16 of an inch. Doesn't have to be super tight. So now we're ready to install the rudder. So the first thing you're going to do is install this grommet right here in your back. Make sure that it goes down flush with the plastic. Take this center tube out of your rudder. And you have two different washers. One is thick plastic and the other one is approximately 1/16 of an inch. The thick plastic goes on top, right under that screw. And then the bottom pin with the hole in it, we'll run that up through the bottom. Put our thinner washer on. And find the hole. When you install that center pin, just get it hand tight. So as you can see the holes in here. That's for the cotter pins that we're going to install. We need to push this up tight. And we want to get a cotter pin in there as the uppermost hole that we can. Just like so. And then the second cotter pin goes in the lower hole. Lowest one you can get to. And now we're going to take a Phillips head screwdriver and we're going to tighten this up or loosen it in order to take out as much wobble as we can in this. Just like so. Hi, dog. Now we can get our rudder cables going through. And all I've done is use the supplied wrenches and Allen wrench to loosen these inset screws, which is this setup right here. So when we were putting this together, you'll notice that you have red paint on the start of each cable in here. And what I do is I center this to where I've got basically all the red paint exposed, or as much as I can, and then I lock the handle in place with the lock knob here. That way I know that my handle here is centered basically for the amount of cable that I have going out the back of the kayak. Now take the nippers, and I like to leave roughly about 1 inch of extra cable hanging out. And then with the crimpers, you can use pliers for this as well. You're going to put these little end caps on. Okay, so we've got our rudder cord coming through now after installing the rudder. We're going to put the cleat on with these 2 screws. This little tooth section here goes forward. And again, I only drill 1 hole at a time. That way I can make sure that it stays centered. Rudder cable goes through the cleat. Now this is important. We're going to be able to cut some of this rudder cord off, but if we do it while the rudder is up, then we'll have no cord left. So with the rudder down, tie the knot. What I do is I just go through this twice. And that leaves you with enough cord. All right, so we've got the rudder installed. We've got all the new cabling in. Next thing we're going to do is install the high seat back before we do the seat upgrade. Now we need to pull these 2 C-clips here. Easiest way to do it is just grab it with pliers, if you can get them in there. Now we're just going to slide this bar to one side, lift the seat out. That's that. Pull the seat bar. So when you set the new seat up, push the bar through about that far. Get it lined up in the seat hole right there. Then we're going to take our channel locks or our poly, move that over as far as we can. And then slide it back into place so that we can get our C-clips back on there. In the package, in the instructions, there's a little envelope in here that has new C-clips. You can reuse the old ones if you want, but might as well use the new ones. Keep the old ones as spares. Now we're going to take this elastic. And it goes under this back, in between the back pad and this plastic. down through the hole, and a granny knot, or half a granny knot. So that takes care of that. Next thing we're going to do is install the seat track. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is pull these adhesive strips off of these little tabs. They go on the bottom of your seat adjuster. All right, next thing we want to do is we want to check the fit on these. If they slide all the way in, then you want to just bend this down a little bit with the hammer, but these have a good fit. Just get them flush. Then you want to find your bolts with your spacer washers. So now we're ready to install the seat straps. This is what holds the seat down. We've removed the 4 screw covers that's part of your standing pad, and we're going to get these ready to get screwed down in there. And take the strap with the sewn in X on it, drill a hole through it. Same thing with the other end, just find the center of that X. So the next step is going to be to remove these screws. And out of your parts here, you've got 4 screws or 4 washers that are the same and 2 that are slightly smaller. These 2 are for the back seat. These 4 are all for these screw mounts or strap mounts. We're going to use the exact same holes that they did. And do the same exact thing on the other side. So we've got the seat installed, the straps are tightened up, the rigid portion of the strap goes over the front bar of the seat. Now we're ready to come back to the back, and basically the forked end goes to the front. You can get this started here with your thumb knob. So I like to tighten these down first before I put the bolt on, or the nut and washer. This is a 13 millimeter nut, so something to put in your toolkit because you do not have one this size, a wrench this size. Once all this is tight, then your seat's installed. Do the exact same thing to the other side. All right, so we're going to use this pattern here that comes supplied with your pedal drive unit, and essentially all we're going to do is rest that down in there. Make your marks for your screw holes and drill them out. So now we're ready to put the plate on. I have a nut and washer on each one. These are nylock nuts, so you can only screw them on a little ways before you need to put a wrench on it. Okay, so we've just gotten done putting this lock mechanism in for the pedal drive. I'm not going to screw it in all the way. You get the idea. There's a couple of key adjustments that you need to make to this. One is these bumpers here. Simple Allen wrench, you want to make sure that there's no up and down play in this. Basically, if you can move the pedal drive unit up and down, or if you can't get the pins to engage, then they're up too high or they're down too low if it's moving up and down. So always remember this orange button here. Press that button, rotate the pedal, get it to lock into position. That puts your prop up and down prior to lifting the unit out, so we don't end up with any broken propellers. Well, thanks for watching, folks. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them at the bottom. And the next video that we're going to do is actually getting this ready for a motor. So this same kayak is getting an electric motor placed on it, and that'll be the next video, so stay tuned.